you stop using it, you really need to go talk to the legal team about that and make sure you understand what the rules are if you stop using your commercial property. Let's talk about ag exemptions a little bit more. So annexation does not change agricultural use, and it does not change agricultural exemptions. The city of Terrell is not the entity that provides for whether or not you have a tax status called agricultural, okay? That's not the city of Terrell. Okay, that's the Kaufman County Appraisal District. The Kaufman County Appraisal District identifies if you have that. One thing that we heard at the last round of public meetings was, well, gee, what if I'm having a dispute with the appraisal district about my ag status? We're going to honor your side of that dispute because we don't want to enter your dispute with Kaufman County Appraisal District related to whether or not you have an ag exemption. So if you've got record that you've got that ag exemption and we can go look it up that you had it in this prior tax year, then we're going to be able to honor that. Another important thing to talk about related to that is that it's not something that the city council would be able to change after annexation. That's a thing that once it's done, once the annexation happens, we still defer. There are many agricultural exemption properties within the current city limits of the city of Terrell. So if your tax statement shows a land market value and an agricultural value, your taxes are going to then be calculated on the agricultural value. So we took an example from a property in Terrell. It's got a market value of 1.3 million. It's got an ag use value of 49,000. Therefore, the appraised value for Kaufman County tax rules is 49,000. You can see the city of Terrell tax rate of 76 cents there. So therefore, if you had an ag property and you decide not to do an agricultural non-annexation exemption, we're going to tell you here in a minute, if you want to stay out because you're ag, you can stay out for 30 years. On the other hand, if you come in, this is what happens, okay? You have an ag exemption and you apply the city tax rate not to that market value of 1.3 million. You apply that city tax rate to that lower dollar amount, which is that ag value. What else related to ag exemptions? There's no need to reapply. If you already have that, it stays in place. It automatically is applied with all newly annexed properties. All land is going to enter with agricultural zoning, and that's going to stay zoned agricultural until a different zoning is applied. So we do have a process that you need to be aware of where when you come in, you're immediately ag from a zoning standpoint. Then, 6 months later, we actually have to approve for you to be an ag again. So sometime after that 6-month dividing mark, you're going to see a letter that comes out. If the council should annex your area, you might see a letter that comes out that says, oh, okay, this piece of land is being rezoned, and it's ag now, and it's being rezoned to ag again. Well, that seems like a cumbersome process, but that's one of the processes that we have to go through whenever we annex land. We have to apply permanent zoning on it. And our expectation is that much of the land will continue to be an ag. We'll look at the land that has buildings on it, and we'll make sure we get into appropriate zoning category. And then also remember, zoning is about what happens when you change the land use on your property. Zoning doesn't tell you have to do something. If you're already doing a use on your property, you're allowed to continue that use. So even if the zoning changes, the agricultural exemption stays in place. Zoning doesn't change your ag exemption. And city taxes are collected on the ag valuation for as long as that agricultural use continues. Other exemptions, we said this last time around, we didn't really get a lot of questions about it, but I'll say it again. We have a senior property valuation freeze policy. All those frozen valuations are carried over automatically, so if you're a senior or you have any of those other exemptions or freezes in place, those are just carried directly on up. The next comment here is, well, how does an agricultural agreement work? You probably haven't seen those. You've had a chance to look over those. You have to already have a Kaufman County ag exemption. It's completely voluntary. There's no requirement that you do that, okay? In exchange for not developing, what you're saying is you're offered a period to be 100% totally, absolutely out of the city limits for the term of that agreement. The original proposal from City Council was to come out and offer those for 4 years because in the past, every other City Council of the City of Terrell has only done a 3-year agricultural non-annexation agreement. City Council listened, City Council discussed this topic with the attorneys, and they've come forward and said, okay, let's change that to a 30-year agricultural non-annexation agreement. So that's what's available to all landowners who have that ag exemption at this time. The very important part is this meets the thinking that we have related to all of this new growth coming to our county. If we know that when development begins on a piece of land, that it's automatically at that time going to, under an agreement, get annexed into the city of Terrell, that makes it reliable for us to know that that 7,300 acres, when it does develop, will develop under rules established by the city of Terrell. And that's a very important point for us, because we know that as all those new developments happen, we'd like to make sure that it's our police department that is managing any crime-related issues on newly developed land. Not because we're worried about crime from the current landowners, but we're worried about crime from the thousands of new people who are likely to move into our area in the near future. So at the expiration of the time period, right now we've set that at 30 years, the city has then rights to voluntarily annex the property. The city doesn't have to immediately annex it. The city can simply have the rights to annex it at some point after that 30-year period. And again, if you develop the land, then that is when annexation would happen. A very important point there is to say, okay, how is this intertwined with an ag exemption? So we've had the question come up several times. If I lose my ag exemption sometime during that 30 years, but I didn't develop my land, then what happens to me? Very, very specific language in those agricultural non-annexation agreements from day one. It's not dependent upon the maintenance of your agricultural exemption, okay? You get into some dispute with the county, you decide to let that land go fallow, you change that from ag to exemption to a wildlife exemption, any of those things, they don't count as development. You maintain your agricultural exemption, and your 30-year non-annexation agricultural agreement would stay in place during that entire period of time, even if you just simply let the land go fallow. What about the no contest agreement? So the no contest agreement is a new program that, as the City of Terrell City Council was discussing this, we said to ourselves, okay, how can we annex in a way that is as respectful as we can for the current landowners who are out there? We know that it is financially difficult to have, okay, I've got one set of expectations with this mortgage, one set of expectation with this land, and property taxes associated with that land. And we were looking for, well, what is a way to make that transition? It was originally proposed by staff as 2 years of a 100% reimbursement. We brought that forward to City Council. City Council changed that to a 4-year reimbursement program. City Council listened on March 20th, listened on April the 4th, consulted with the attorney's team and said, okay, let's now change that to a 10-year no contest program. And under that 10-year no contest program, it would be 6 years at 100% reimbursement of maintenance and operation taxes, and then a sliding scale following after that, 80, 60, 40, 20, so that you get 10 full years. And I'll give you some more details about that. So again, it's completely voluntary. It's not a requirement. You don't have to sign that paperwork that came to you. You only have to sign it if you actually want to get the reimbursement. It's not automatic. You've got to have a city signature and a landowner signature. It is literally what it sounds like. It's an exchange for not contesting the annexation. The landowners offer that reimbursement of those property taxes. It's based on the improvements of the property on the date of annexation. So if you